Have you ever had the feeling that all NLP patterns are the same? Stay tuned. So when I first went through my NLP Practitioner, NLP Master Practitioner training, I had this sense that all of these NLP patterns, most all of them were pretty much the same. And what I mean by that is that we would elicit the submodalities of the present or problem state. We would elicit the submodalities of a resource state, and we would take those submodalities from the resource state, we would map them across and recode the initial unresourceful memory, and then, like magic, they would be transformed. And we did that process over and over and over again. So we would elicit the submodalities of the problem state, elicit the submodalities of a resource state, recode the problem state in the formatting of the resource state, and every once in a while we would have like a little script to read. So and for one, you know, if we were curing grief, it would be, well, was there ever a time when, what right now when you think about it you feel a sense of loss? And then, was there ever anything that you lost and you actually feel pretty resourceful when you think about it now? And so, okay, let's put those over here. And then there would be a script saying like, and as you move out into the future and you think about this person, you know, you can actually notice that it's just a sign letting you know that you miss them and that they're here and they're still with you and that they love you and they appreciate you and, you know, yada, yada, yada. It was a hypnotic script. And then we would learn a pattern for shame, and it would be, okay, was there ever a time, when is it that you are, a memory that you think about it and you feel embarrassed, you feel ashamed? Was there ever a time when, you know, something happened to you and you felt good and secure within yourself regardless of what other people said or thought about you? And okay, let's take those submodalities, map it over here, and then there was a script saying like, your standards are yours, and it doesn't matter what anybody says because you know what's right for you, and you know, and yada, yada, yada. And so it's like all of these patterns were the same. It was like submodalities, map across, read the script. And so it got me really curious. I'm going, you know, it's really interesting because, well, the patterns all seem the same, and the only thing that was really different was the script that was different. And it wasn't until years later when I started studying neurosemantics and I started learning more about framing and about how language works to influence behavior, that I realized that the magic in those patterns was not actually in the submodality work. The magic was in the script. And that the script was what actually, when it worked, and it didn't work all the time, and sometimes it would work temporarily, and then, you know, as life went on, things would shift back into place. And the reason why is because the submodality shift, it worked almost like a convincer. So the submodality shift worked, and they would experience it differently because they had recoded it in their mind. And they would, yeah, so they would feel different in that moment, and that worked as a convincer. They go, oh my God, I can think about that experience, and I feel the way I want to feel. And the script's job was to kind of lock that in and future pace it and stabilize it with some resourceful frames. And if those frames didn't stick, right? If the person kind of argued with the frames, they were reframing you back, or they were discounting them, or in the back of their mind there was an even further frame going, oh yeah, that's a bunch of baloney, or no, I don't agree with that. That ultimately the submodality shift would reorganize back to the way that it was. So that's just kind of a cool story. It's kind of a, you know, this is kind of a rough content. I'm just shooting a video for you to share my experience. Wondering what's your experience with submodality shifts, if you have had any. Did they work for you? Did you notice the same thing that I'm noticing? And do you recognize that the power is actually in the framing? And one of the really cool things that I noticed is that actually, when I started working with the mind lines model, which is kind of like a different way of looking at the sleight of mouth model, it's organized into 7 directions of the mind, but when I started learning the mind lines model on how to do reframing, what I found when I was working with clients, which was actually really cool, is that when I wouldn't change anything with submodalities. I would just work in the meta realm of the beliefs in this person's, the framings. And when we would actually successfully reframe the experience, the submodalities would shift automatically. So we would do something, and then, you know, I wouldn't say, okay, is it clear or is it blurry? Is it heavy or is it light? I would just say, we would reframe it. I'm going, oh, well, that's not that. Maybe it's just this. And then we go, wow, it just, it feels so much lighter now. Or, it's so much more clear now. And so I found that it was actually fascinating that if you actually were to use just the script part and get that script to get accepted in this person, that the submodalities would change automatically, which I found actually very fascinating.